You guys, if there's at least one constant on this channel, it's that I will always make it here for this end of the year video. I read a total of 95 books this year. That was my Goodreads reading goal and I eventually hit it. I have every single book that I read this year in front of me. We're gonna keep the tradition going and kind of just briefly go over each book. Maybe I'll give you a yes, no, or maybe if whether or not I think it's worth reading. We did just make a Miranda Reads video that's pretty much the same thing, but we actually go more in depth into each book. If you do want to know a little bit more about any of these books, go ahead and watch those two videos over on Miranda Reads. But today we're going to keep it nice, short, and sweet like always. Sit back, relax, feel free to put me on 2x speed while you're watching so that this goes a little bit quicker. But we're going to go ahead and get started. I believe this is the first stack. So the first book that I read this year in 2023 was My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Ottessa Moshfegh. This was my first book by this author and she's able to take really mundane things and write about it really brilliantly. I would say this book is a maybe just because it depends on your reading taste, but I did really enjoy it. Up next we have 5 Survived by Holly Jackson, fast-paced YA mystery thriller that all takes place over the span of like 8 hours in this one RV. I thought it was super entertaining, highly recommend. That is a yes for me. We have Throttled by Lauren Asher, book 1 in the Dirty Air series. F1 sports romance, I liked it, didn't love it. I would say no. I then have Lightlark by Alex Astor. Loved this book. YA fantasy, super interesting concept that is getting adapted into a movie pretty soon. So definitely read it before that comes out, yes. I then have Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, my first sci-fi book. I really enjoyed it. I would recommend listening to the audiobook just because there's so many like different scientific facts thrown at you throughout this book, but the ending was so worth it and I did love the overall story. This one's getting adapted into a movie as well, so yes, read it. I then read the next 2 books I had in the Never After series by Emily McIntyre, Scarred and Wretched. These are just like fast, entertaining dark romances. I would say yes, they're not my favorite, but they are worth the read. I then have Saint by Adrienne Young. This is like my new fancy cover, but this is basically a prequel to the Fable duology, which you guys know I loved last year. I would say yes, this is worth the read, but read the duet first. I have Twisted Love by Anna Huang. You guys know if you're from the other channel that we did not like this book. I would go on to say I hated this book, but I am willing to give the rest of the series a chance. I would say no, this book was not worth it. Up next, I have The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. Amazing, brilliant writing, high fantasy. Please tell me you can't see the dust. Intense writing, dark story, but fantastic. Yes, worth the read. I then read Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ning. I really liked this one. I would say yes, it's worth the read. Super short family drama that deals with a lot of stuff. I then have 9 by Zach Hines. YA dystopian, crazy concept. I really enjoyed it. I would say yes, this is like one of the underdogs of the year for me. I then read Brutal Prince by Sophie Lark. I liked it. I thought I was gonna love it, but I didn't. I think I was just expecting it to be something that it wasn't. I wanted it to be a little darker. I needed a little bit more. I then read Coraline by Neil Gaiman. I have always been obsessed with the movie, so I needed to read the book. And it did not disappoint. It was just as creepy and disturbing, and it was cool to see where the story originated from. I would say yes, it's worth it. I then had If He Had Been With Me by Laura Nolan. 5-star read, probably my first 5-star of the year. Devastating YA contemporary love story, but so beautiful. Absolutely loved it. Yes, it's worth the read. Up next, I read 7th Circle by Tate James, book 1 in the Hades series. Absolutely loved it. She writes really good dark reverse harem series. This is the spin-off to the Madison Kate series, and I would recommend reading that one first, but I am loving this one. I then read We Are the Brennans by Tracy Lange. I liked it, did not love it. No, I don't think it's worth it, but it was a fun like March read since it's like Irish, clovers, that kind of vibe. Up next, I have Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. Loved it. It's one of those that are really sad and heartbreaking, but it's written so beautifully and the overall messages are really beautiful, so it makes up for it. I did cry and tear up on a lot of these, but it's basically a bunch of short stories that take place in this time traveling cafe. Loved it. Yes, worth the read. Sorry, I'm kind of flying by these. Maybe I'll give you a little extra something for each. Up next, I have Promises and Pomegranates by Sab R. Miller, book 1 in the Monsters and Muses series. Did not love it. Nope, didn't love her. It was like a Hades and Persephone retelling, but it just missed the mark for me. I don't think this one was worth reading personally. But this next one I did love. It is V.E. Schwab's Gallant, my first book by this author. Fantastic. It's a YA gothic creepy story with like paranormal aspects that's set in this haunted house. So good. I definitely think this one's worth reading, especially around like spooky season. I then read Electric Idol by Katie Robert. This is book book 2 in the Dark Olympus series. These are all like Greek mythology, lightly based. I liked book 1, Neon Gods, and I loved this one, so I do think this second book is worth the read. Book 1 was Hades and Persephone, and this one was Psyche and Eros. Loved this one. I then read another YA mystery, The Lies They Tell by Gillian French. Honestly, this was pretty good. I love myself some YA books, and YA mysteries just know how to do it. This was like small town mystery, and they had some crazy twists. I do remember liking this one. Up next, I have The Inmate by Frida McFadden. I'm not gonna go into this one, but no, I do not think it was worth reading. I think this was the worst book I read all year, and I think it just comes down to I don't like her writing style, and that's okay. But this book was laughable. I found myself laughing out loud at a lot of the scenes that weren't supposed to be funny. So yeah, no hate to the authors ever, of course, but that was not my cup of tea. I then have book 1 and 2 in the Dark Verse series by Runex, The Predator and the Reaper. Fantastic dark romance mafia books. I was waiting so long to find a dark romance series with an actual good plot that matches the spice level, and these are it for me. They were fantastic. I always highly recommend, especially if you're trying to get into dark romance or just want like a really interesting mystery with romance. Super, super good. I can't wait to finish this series in the new year. Yes, worth reading. After that, I began my journey throughout the Harry Potter books by J.K. Rowling. Don't worry, I'm not supporting the author. I am trying to thrift all of my copies. That's why I don't have all of them, but I read the first 3 books this year. I don't have Prisoner of Azkaban yet, but it was just about time that I read these because I love the movies. I grew up on the movies, and reading the books is just such a cool way to re-experience the stories in a different format, and there's a lot in the books that were left out in the movies, so I'm having a really good time with these. I would say the books are worth reading, and if you don't want to support the author, that's okay. You could find these thrifting. I find a lot of them thrifting. Pushing over the next stack, we have the first book club book that we had in Literal Besties, and it was Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. This was a super popular sports romance this year. I honestly did not love it, despite popular opinion. I didn't think it was anything special, and I don't think it was worth reading, honestly. I'll leave it at that. Ironic, because the next book I have is book 6 in the Zodiac Academy series, Fated Throne by Caroline Peckham and Suzanne Valenti, and this is my guilty pleasure series, you guys already know. This is essentially a dark romance bully series that takes place in a fantasy world, so it does remind me of Harry Potter just because they get shipped off to like this magic boarding school, but it's very adult and very spicy, and at the end of the day, it is a dark romance, not really a fantasy. It kind of just incorporates the two. These are super dramatic, but they're also addicting. I love the series. This was a 5-star read for me. After that, I read Indigo Ridge by Devaney Perry, book 1 in the Eden series, and I didn't like it. I really wanted to because I love the covers in this series, but yeah, I didn't think it was worth reading. It's a small town mystery with a romance, and I didn't think the romance was necessary. It just felt forced. After that, I read Agatha Christie's And Then They Were None. This was my first Agatha Christie book. I really did enjoy it. I could not predict the ending, and I thought it was a really fun read. I know there's a couple different adaptations, and I do want to watch one of them, but I'm not sure which one is the best one. Let me know in the comments if you've watched one and enjoyed it. Oh no, I feel like I'm being so negative, but I'm gonna have to keep going. Caraval by Stephanie Garber. I read this year, and you guys know this is one of my most disappointing reads of the year. I did not like it at all. I don't know why, because I know everyone really loves this series. I love the concept of like this magical games carnival thing. I just wish we got to see more of that. I just didn't love our main character, and I think that's where my problem's rooted. I honestly would say no, this book is not worth reading, but I know that's not popular opinion. Oh my gosh, this is like a joke. Up next, I have Behind Closed Doors by B.A. Paris. Maybe I was just having a bad month, honestly, because this was not good whatsoever either. I cannot believe this has the amount of hype that it has because I just did not enjoy it at all. I won't rag on it too much, but just know I did not enjoy it. I didn't like the characters, I didn't like the plot, I didn't like the storytelling. I especially didn't like the man. It was just a no for me this year. On a lighter note, we have One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. This one was a really cute, lighthearted romance read with some time travel involved, which made it really interesting. I'd say, yeah, that one was worth the read. Alice Feeney's Daisy Darker. This was such a fun book club read because I got everyone's predictions and reactions while reading it, and this one just made for such a fun time. Loved it. It is a reimagining of Agatha Christie's And Then They Were None, and I did enjoy this one. It's a good spooky October read because it takes place like around Halloween. I would say yes. Dark Shores by Danielle L. Jensen. I picked this one up because I loved her duet that I read last year. Did not love this book at all, and we will move on. Then we have this bad boy, Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J. Maas. the best book I probably read all year. But are we surprised? Are we surprised? No. This was the last book I had in the Throne of Glass series. I don't know why it took me so long to read. I thought this was like one of the first books I read this year, but I guess not. Such an amazing ending to a fantastic series. You guys already know, I won't go on. But just know that this series is my Roman Empire. I think about it daily. I think about these characters daily, and I will never know peace. I then read Neil Shusterman's new release this year, which was Gleanings. This was a bunch of short stories that took place in the Arc of Scythe universe, which you guys know I was absolutely obsessed with. I'm not a huge short story person. I did enjoy reading these though because they were set in the same world. I would say yes, it's worth reading, but I didn't love it nearly as much as I loved the series. Meet Me at the Lake by Carly Fortune. I picked it up because I thought it was going to be a really fun summer read. I did not love it. I don't think it was worth reading, but I do think her other book, Every Summer After, is worth reading. I read that one last year. I read the next two books that I had in the Addicted/Calloway Sisters series by Kristen Becker Ritchie, Long Way Down and Field of Fire. I liked these. I just think at this point in the series, like, the books do not need to be this long. I'm trying not to critique every book that I pick up here. I think the series is worth it if you can get into the characters, but if not, just don't even bother because it's just way too long in my opinion. After that, I read one of the biggest books of this year, and that was Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. Hear me out, I did not love this book. It felt, okay, again, I'm not gonna try to sit here and critique it. I just felt like it was a lot of other fantasy books that I had already read mushed together in one messy book. I do like the concept, I like the dragons. I don't know why this book was the one to take off this year though. I'll say it, sue me. Don't sue me. I then have Blade of Secrets by Trisha Levenseller. This was actually a really fun YA fantasy read. I did end up buying the sequel after reading this one because it was just like a fun time. But I already knew I loved Trisha Levenseller's writing, so I would say yes, this one's worth it. Oh, going back to Fourth Wing, do I think it was worth the read? Maybe. At the end of this stack, I have Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. This was a quick sci-fi read that I did give 5 stars. Excuse all the dust I just picked up from the floor. This one honestly surprised me. I did not think I was gonna love it as much as I did, but definitely worth the read. I wanna watch the movie adaptation. I'm gonna bring these stacks back and then move on to the other ones. After that, I read I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy, her memoir that everyone was obsessing over last year, and they were for good reason. Honestly, just a really heartbreaking but humorous memoir just because she did such a good job with the writing. I really enjoyed it. Yes, worth the read. Then I have My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. Love this cover, by the way. Probably one of my favorite covers of the year. This book, though, made me realize I don't think I like exorcism, possession books because it just makes me really sad for everyone involved. I know that's definitely not the point of the story, but even though this was a horror book, I was mostly just sad the whole time, so that was a bummer. I would say I don't know if that one's worth reading, maybe. Depends if you like that kind of stuff. After that, I have The Perfect Marriage by Geneva Rose, another one that's just so hyped. I don't know why. Literally, this is the whole plot. His mistress is dead, his wife is his only hope. So I should have known by picking this up. Like, is that something I really want to read about, or am I just gonna hate everyone involved? I'd say no. Don't read that one. After that, I actually read a novella on Kindle Unlimited, and it was A Very Krampus Holiday. You guys already know what happened with this one. I thought it was gonna be a really fast-paced mystery for like the winter time, and it was just monster smut. So because I wasn't expecting that, it caught me off guard. I did not enjoy it. I would say no, not worth the read unless you know what you're signing up for. That sounds like something you want, then yeah, go ahead and read it. Who am I to judge? After that, I have Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton. This was a memoir about like her early 20s, and I really enjoyed it. I want to read more memoirs in the new year. I found myself just really loving a lot of these quotes and life lessons, so this is one that I always look back at, and I'd be interested to read more by her. After that, I'm getting into my Penelope Douglas phase, I know. I have Bully by Penelope Douglas. This one was so entertaining. It felt more like a YA read, but I don't want to say that because I'm not sure if that's accurate. I take that back. I don't know if it's YA, but it is like a high school bully romance, and everything about it just had me like giddy and kicking my feet up. So I love this one. I say yes, worth reading, and one of the more digestible Penelope Douglas books that they have. After that, we're heading into summer, so I read Good Girl Complex by Elle Kennedy. I like Elle Kennedy's Off Campus and Briar U series. This one I didn't love as much. I would say not worth the read, but maybe depending on if you like her writing and if you want like a summer rom-com. After that, I have The Only One Left by Riley Sager. Such a good book, definitely worth the read in my opinion. Mystery thriller, and one that I actually could not predict the ending, which I appreciate, so that's why I think it's worth it. Oh no, we're about to get controversial controversial. Up next, we have Penelope Douglas's Credence. Here's the thing. I know this book has like a cult following, but it's also like so split. People hate this book and don't think it should exist, and then some people love it and it's like their favorite books of all time. I somehow fall a little bit in the middle, but leaning a little this way because the concept is insane. Honestly, I went into it blind, but since I read and love dark romances, I never really think Penelope Douglas books are that crazy. I'm not gonna tell you anything about it. Just know that if you sign up for it, let's keep an open mind and let's just enjoy the ride, because at the end of the day, it's fiction. This is a judge-free household. After that, I have A History of Wild Places by Shay Earnshaw. I'm so happy I ended up reading this book just because it's been on my shelves for so long. As far as the actual content, I liked it. Didn't love it, but that was my fault because I know I don't like specific plots like this, and I went into it blindly. So I do think it's worth the read. It just wasn't my favorite of the year. After that, I have Belladonna by Adeline Grace. A lot of people wanted me to read this one. It is like a gothic YA fantasy read, and I love that death is a character. However, there's like a little something missing for me, and I liked Gallant by V.E. Schwab more. It's kind of the same vibe, but I just seem to like that one more. So I found myself kind of comparing, and this was lacking something for me. After that, I did read His and Hers by Alice Feeney. It was a book club book. I liked it, but it took like a really dark, disturbing twist that I was not expecting. Coming off of Daisy Darker, which I absolutely loved, I had high hopes for this one, and I didn't connect to it as much as I did with Daisy Darker. I think because these two main characters were so unlikable, and they were supposed to be. I just don't love reading about people that I don't like. After that, I have Does It Hurt by H.D. Carlton. This is a darker romance with a pretty crazy plot and a lot of twists and turns that you would not expect in something like this. But I wasn't in love with our couple and the romance, so I didn't love it as much as everyone else did. I would say it's worth the read though, if you want like a spicy, really twisty type of book. Speaking of spicy, twisty books, actually, I then went into The Cat and Mouse Duet by H.D. Carlton, same author, but completely different series. With these books, before I even say anything, I do always like to reiterate that these are very dark, especially compared to like everything else I've read this year, and I never really want to recommend this duet to anyone without knowing their specific tastes and preferences, because it's just a lot going on and it does get pretty dark and disturbing. So just definitely check content warnings before going into anything if you need to, but these especially, because while book one was like really fun, it's like a dark stalker romance, book two gets serious. Things step up, and it was like really hard to get through actually. This couple is one that I'm gonna remember forever, and this author's writing just took it to another level for me. It is intense, but it was good. I can't wait to read the spin-off series that the author is doing. After those, I did read the little novella Satan's Affair that goes along with that duet, and I honestly would read this before going into the duet if you're wanting to read this at all. Again, check content warnings. This one's actually probably more gruesome and gory than the other two, but we're following like a really interesting, crazy character, and it's like a spicy reverse harem, perfect for Halloween, and it's super thin too. But I would read this one first before the duet if you're wanting to read them. After that, I have I Killed Zoe Spanos by Kit Frick, another YA mystery thriller that I was obsessed with this year. Small town mystery, part of the story is told in a podcast form, so it made for a really interesting audiobook, but this one was super fun and I couldn't predict the ending again. Go pick that one up, especially if you like YA mystery thrillers or if you just want like a fast-paced read. After that, I read Daisy Hates by Jessa Hastings, book 2 in the Magnolia Parks universe. I did not like book 1. I loved the second book, so I will continue. I just don't know if I'm gonna read the Magnolia books. I definitely love Daisy's books though. I then read one of my favorite mystery thrillers of the year, and that was What Lies in the Woods by Kate Alice Marshall. I loved pretty much everything about this one. I believe I gave it a 4.5, and that's like one of the highest ratings that I gave. That's like a perfect book in my opinion. After that, I read my favorite mystery thriller I think I've ever read, and it is Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Gillian McAllister. This one is basically about a mother witnessing her son kill someone in cold blood, and she has the opportunity to go back in time and change the event before it happens. Every day that she wakes up, it's one day before the event. So the story's told backwards, and I didn't know if the author was going to be able to execute this as well as I was picturing it in my head, but they absolutely did. Loved it. Super interesting and unique. Definitely go read. After that, we have Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. I don't know what it is, and I promise it's not me just trying to be difficult, but anytime there's a really hyped book, maybe I just go into it with too high expectations, but I thought this book was good. I didn't think it was nearly as good as everyone else said it was though. Might just be personal preference. I did think the writing was really beautiful. I liked the concept. I liked the idea, but nothing about this book for me at least felt life-changing like it did for a lot of other people. I do want to read the sequel though. I'd say it's worth reading, but I mean, I didn't think it was anything to write home about. This is a funny follow-up because now I'm gonna get judged for liking the next two, but it's Penelope Douglas's first two books in the Devil's Night series. Honestly, this is a real wake-up call for me, I think, because of course I'm not gonna like all the popular book talk books and then I'm gonna like something like this. But I mean, am I surprised? I've loved every other Penelope Douglas book I read, so this one was no different. It was honestly everything. The first book was a boyfriend's older brother trope, but it was super interesting because the boyfriend's older brother and his friends wanted revenge on her, and that made for a really interesting dynamic. And then book two was like a romantic suspense type of book that follows a different couple, but it was just as entertaining. I actually really enjoyed these, I'm afraid to say, because I had heard mixed things going into it, but are we surprised? At this point, the last one I have in this stack is Kingdom of the Wicked by Carrie Maniscalco. Gothic mystery thriller vibes, witchy. Another one I liked but didn't love. I would say go ahead and read it, see if it's your vibe. I don't know if I'm going to continue with the series though. I promise I'm not trying to be a negative Nelly. This is just really how I felt about these books this year. On to the last stack, we have yet another Penelope Douglas and it's Birthday Girl. I read this during my birthday month. I mean, you have to, you know? Another crazy concept though. I believe this trope was boyfriend's father? I know. Honestly, should I seek therapy? Don't answer that. At the end of the day, these are just fun. It's a fun, entertaining, mindless read. I can kind of switch off my brain and just read it and enjoy the ride. And sometimes you need books like that. I liked it. Their way of writing just like pulls you in, chews you up, spits you out, you know what I mean? It takes a certain audience for Penelope Douglas books. After that, I have the Dark Side series books 1 and 2 by Christy Cunning. This is another pseudonym for the late C.M. Owens. You guys know I loved the Mind F series last year by S.T. Abbey. Same author. This is just a different type of series. This was like a paranormal supernatural reverse harem series, and I mean, it's so much fun. I was interested to see if the writing differed between her different pseudonyms, and I really think they do. I would have assumed this is a completely different author. I don't love it as much as I did the Mind F series, but it's just as entertaining. I then have Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. Gillian Flynn? You guys know something about, first of all, why is there so many authors with this name, and why can I never pronounce it right? It's like sometimes it's Jillian, sometimes it's Gillian. I never know which one. I'm gonna go with Jillian, but let me know if I'm wrong. I probably am. This one was dark and twisty and disturbing. Not at all what I was expecting, but I am interested to see the show. I'd say, honestly, maybe. I don't know if I loved that book. I'd say maybe it was worth it. And then have The House by Christina Lauren. You guys know we loved this book. It was like a paranormal romance, but also YA, I think. It's like a cute, wholesome love story, but then there's like a haunted house, quite literally, and the house does not want them to be together. After that, we have the first book in the Natural series by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This book took over this year for YA mysteries, and I can see why. Anytime you have like a kid working with the FBI to solve murders or cold cases or anything like that, I always find that super interesting. This reminds me a lot of the show Psych, just because she's kind of like a profiler, but just based off of observing people, and I liked it. I'd say it's worth the read. I don't know if I'm gonna continue with that series though. Gosh, I'm so dramatic. Up next, we have Stalking Jack the Ripper by Carrie Maniscalco. God, it's fine. I like the next few coming up. This one, I thought it was okay. It was super graphic and gory though, for like no reason. At least it's because I don't like that type of stuff, so I was kind of struggling through this one, but it's, yeah, based off Jack the Ripper killings that happened in London, and it's just about a girl trying to figure out who is doing all these awful things to women. I don't think it was my cup of tea. I honestly liked Kingdom of the Wicked more by this author. Here we go. Up next, we have One Dark Window by Rachel Gillick. I loved this book. The magic systems were really unique. I will continue with this series in the new year. I do already have the sequel, and I think this one's definitely worth the read. After that, I have The Shadows by Alex North. I loved Alex North's The Whisper Man last year, and I loved The Shadows this year. It's like a psychological thriller where lucid dreams end up in murder, and I always really love his storylines and endings, so I would say worth it. After that, you guys know in this house we love Sarah J Maas. I know not everyone does, but you guys, you're not new. You already know I'm gonna hype up this book, and it is A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J Maas. This is book 1 in the ACOTAR spin-off series, and probably my favorite ACOTAR book that I've read thus far. It's a redemption story. Who doesn't love a good redemption story, you know? I didn't really like this character before reading her book. After reading her book, she's one of my favorite characters of all time. So do with that what you will. I would say worth it. We stan Sarah J Maas here. Sorry. After that, we have Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. This was always marketed as like a low-stakes, high fantasy, cozy read. I found it to be a little more boring than cozy just because I think I've learned I need some high stakes. I need something to kind of like grip me, hook me, pull me in, and I just prefer when books are a little bit of a page turner. so my fault for picking this one up. At least I tried, and I know now low stakes isn't really for me, but I can see why a lot of people like this book this year. After that, I have Susanna Clarke's Piranesi. This was such a good dream-like whimsical type of read. Not at all what I was expecting, but it's like an alternative reality. The whole story is told in Piranesi's journal entries. Super unique read, highly recommend. Definitely think it was worth it. And I know a couple people said that they think this is gonna be like a new modern classic, and I can definitely see that. Oh, here's the sequel. I was looking for this earlier, but I read the sequel to Fourth Wing, which was Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros, and despite popular opinion, I enjoyed this one a lot more than Fourth Wing. I felt like the story was finally becoming its own in this book, whereas book one, I said it felt like a bunch of different things. I see the flaws people point out with this one, but I do still think I liked it better than Fourth Wing. Oop. I ended up finishing off the Off Campus and Briar U series by Elle Kennedy, The Dare and the Legacy. I gave both of these a 3-star because I always think these books are solid. However, these last two were not my favorite in the entire series, but I'm happy to be done with that series. I did like it overall. I did read Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murders by Jessie Q. Santos, I believe. I don't own the book, but that was a book club book. It was like a cozy mystery. I liked it, didn't love it. I thought that was a cute, fun one. I would say maybe. After that, though, I have like one of my new favorite books, and it is Circe by Madeline Miller. I should have known. The Song of Achilles was a 5-star read for me. I don't know why it took me so long to read this book, but I think about this one constantly. It's basically like adaptations of Greek myths told in Circe the witch's perspective. It's one of those that just like felt tragic, but it was so beautifully written that you love it. And I cannot wait to read more Madeline Miller in the future. I heard she's coming out with a Persephone book, and if that's the case, I can't wait to get my hands on it because I've loved her other 2 books. Finally, getting into December books, we have Eileen by Ottessa Moshfegh. I liked it. I think I did like My Year of Rest and Relaxation a little bit more, but when I got into this one, I knew what to expect. I do want to read more of her in the new year. I then have Love Light Farms by B.K. Borson, our last book club book of the year. Hey, I didn't talk about... Okay, well, in this one, it's like a super fun holiday rom-com, friends to lovers, fake dating, Christmas tree farm is the setting. I liked it. I would be interested in reading more books in the series, so I would say worth it. Forgot about this other book though because I don't own it, but it was The Happy Place by Emily Henry, and I really liked it. I think it made me understand the Emily Henry girls. I wasn't the biggest fan of People We Meet on Vacation, but this one I just really enjoyed. I felt like all of the characters had depth. I liked the romance. I liked the realistic aspects between friendships, and yeah, overall I really enjoyed it. I do want to buy this if she ever comes out with a paperback, but I'm a hardcover girly until it comes to contemporary romances. I have like a contemporary romance shelf that I like to have all paperback, so I'm waiting for that. Next, I have The Plight Before Christmas by Kate Stewart. Another holiday romance. This one was like super dramatic, super funny. I loved it. Definitely a good one to get you into the holiday spirit. And then we've hit the last bit of the pile, my short books that I speed read at the end of this month to hit my reading goal, but it was so worth it because I had started with The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, and it was everything and more. It was everything and more. I had no idea what to expect. I can definitely see why this is like considered a modern classic. It's really relatable at some points, but it's also like a super sad, devastating story, especially when you learn more about Sylvia Plath herself. But it's a super important read. I'm glad I read it. It reminded me of Girl Interrupted, and I grew up loving that movie, so that's kind of the same vibes. It's like a lot of heavy mental health type of stuff, but it was a good read. Then we have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson, my first Shirley Jackson book. Gothic, layered writing, lots of different messages snuck in there, and it was just a really good, odd, strange read. I wish I would have read this in October, but I still enjoyed it either way. I then have The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, and wow, I'm so mad at myself for waiting so long to read it because I know Bailey is obsessed with this book, and I think I am now too after reading. There's just so many good life lessons. I keep saying I wish this was required reading when I was in school because I think it really would have stuck with me. I highlighted a bunch of different quotes. I thought it was such a beautiful book, and yeah, I highly recommend. I then read Stephen King's Elevation, super short read, and it was fantastic. It's like a cute small town story that ended up being really wholesome, but the ending is bittersweet. I loved it. The last book I read this year, you guys, is Come Closer by Sarah Gran. It was like a fast-paced horror novel that I got for Christmas, so I decided to read it. And it's basically a story of a girl who is getting possessed by a demon. So I should have known after reading My Best Friend's Exorcism that this just wasn't for me, because again, like, I know I was not supposed to be sad this whole book, but I just felt bad for her. I didn't love it, but it was a quick way to end the year off. That is it, unless I forgot one of the ones that I don't own. If I did, I'm sure I covered it in the Miranda video, but I think this was it. Just like that was all 95 books I read in 2023. It was honestly a really fun reading year. I found a lot of new 5 5-star reads. I found a lot of new genres and authors and series that I love that I can't wait to continue on in the new year. I say this every end of the year video, but anytime I see all the books stacked up together, I don't feel like it looks like a lot. Like, I'm really sitting here like, this is not 95 books. You always just think it's gonna be like taller stacks, and it's not. But either way, I'm really proud of myself. This is the most books I've ever read. I mean, ever. I didn't reference back to the previous 2 years, but I think the first year I read like 62 books. Last year I think it was like 82 or 85. So 95 is just insane. I don't really know what my plan is for next year. I think I am just gonna set my Goodreads goal for 1 and then use the rest of the year to track and see how much I can realistically read. Because while I like having a goal and it does give me some motivation to reach it, constantly seeing Goodreads say like, you're 2 books behind, you're 4 books behind schedule, really just stresses me out, and it kind of ruins the reading experience for me. So I'm gonna see how next year goes, if I kind of just take off that pressure and mood read and see if maybe I get more read that way, or if I'm gonna have to go back to setting myself a strict goal. Referring back to one of my previous videos, the Making the 2023 TBR cart, I went back and counted, and I think I ended up reading about 22 out of the 44 books I had. So I mean, that's about half. I think that's not too bad. I was hoping to read all 44 of those, but I mean, at least I got half done. That is a bit of an accomplishment. I do think Amanda and I both want to make TBR carts next year, so that will probably be a video on the main channel. That's pretty much it for today's video though. Let me know in the comments how your reading year went. I'm not even gonna say I'm gonna be more active on this channel because I say that every video and then it doesn't happen. So maybe me not saying it, I won't jinx myself. I do want to do a video though of like my boyfriend picks out my TBR and like cute reorganization videos and stuff. So hopefully those are coming soon. I knew I had to at least make it back to the channel for this video because I love doing it every year. So I had to do it. Again, if you want like a more detailed, in-depth version of this video, go check out the Loranda one. That one should be coming out soon if it's not already out. We have a lot of fun videos planned for that channel though. So make sure to go check it out if you haven't already. Also make sure to like and subscribe. I hope everyone had an amazing 2023 and I hope everyone has an amazing new year as well. I will see you guys next time. And here the cat comes busting in. Hi, welcome. Welcome. You're just gonna leave the door wide open? But in the best way possible. It's like, yes, I'm gonna cry. Not my gross feet just flicking around the tripod. Love the series. This was a 5-star read for me. The cat's back. Come on in. Kitty! I hope that's fireworks. Amanda just texted me and she was like, do you hear that? It's the fireworks I was saying. She said she thinks the whole fireworks stand on the corner like blew up, which I hope everyone's okay and that didn't happen, but it was like a lot of fireworks going off at once and it's still going. I don't know if you can hear it. On the front it says a quick, satisfying read, and that's exactly what it was. It's like, do y'all hear that? It would pick exactly when I'm recording a video for this channel to catch on fire. I wonder if someone's saying something in the neighborhood app. No, you're joking, you're joking, you're joking. Ah!